Uh, as you uh, as you have seen, the subject of this panel, the first panel, is Asia Pacific in a changing global order the next decade. The global order is under the impact of several political, economic, social, environmental, and technological trends. In the past 30 years, due to the rise of the Asian economies, mainly China and India, but not limited to them, we could witness a more evident contribution of the Asian countries to shape the global order. So we can claim that the second wave of the globalization was more under the impact of Asia. On the one hand, the slowed pace of growth in the main Asian economies within the past 2 to 3 years sends a conflicting signal to the audience about the near future. On the other hand, the return of protectionism policies in the US, as well as the rise of populist and more authoritarian governments in the global order forerunners, that is, the Western countries, raises ambiguity and pessimism about the future of the global order. These patterns are indeed products of other trends: the technology transformation and the battle of the elephants to take the lead are among the major drivers of the political dynamics of the changing global order. What are the other major trends of the global order, and how are they going to affect Asia and Asia-Pacific countries? In the next 90 minutes, we are going to get some answers to these key questions from our distinguished panelists. I'm very delighted to have a special guest at this panel, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, the Honorable Ministry of the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Government of Bangladesh. Dr. Abdul Momen is a Bangladeshi economist, diplomat, politician, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh. He was Bangladesh permanent representative to the UN from 2009 to 2015. He won the 2018 Bangladeshi general elections from Sylhet 1 constituency. Mr. Abdul Momen has held several positions in the international level, among them President of the UNICEF Executive Board at the international level in 2010, Vice President and Acting President of the 67 United Nations General Assembly, and President of the United Nations High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation in 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Abdul Momen and to listen to his words and his speech as the keynote speaker of this panel. It's up to you. Yeah, you have the floor, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants, delegates, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am truly delighted to join all of you at this August gathering. The choice of the role and state of the Asia-Pacific region as the topic of discussion is a manifestation of FBCI's preparedness to deal with the challenges and opportunities of the coming days. We are already living in the Asian century, and the power and prospect of the Asia-Pacific region has continued to surpass all other regions of the world. If you remember this proverb, history repeats itself, then we are seeing the repetition. Once the Indian subcontinent and China were attractive centers of the world, no wonder Columbus, in order to find a better route to Indian subcontinent, and ended up in discovery of America. And our own prophet advised us to go even to China to acquire knowledge. This region was far ahead of other regions in terms of art and culture, music and literature, and in all the aspects of culture. Colonialism and Western exploitation ruptured all the prosperity. It is not until now that the Asia-Pacific region is gaining back its rightful position. So our presence today to discuss the potentiality of Asia-Pacific region in the next decade could not have been better timed. Ladies and gentlemen, Asia-Pacific is the most vibrant and growing region in the world. It is home to 65% of the world's population and generating around 62% of the global GDP. As per Asian Development Bank, the share of Asia-Pacific region in global gross domestic product continues to increase, growing from 30.1% in 2000 to 42.6% in 2017. It further states that the Asian century will actually design the next global century. Moreover, Asia accounts for 30% of all global superstar firms, up from 15% in the 1990s. Superstar firms are those firms which are more innovative, more productive, more profitable than everyone else. Most of these companies are from China, India, Japan, Australia, Korea, and ASEAN region. The economic rise of Asia based on export-led development and directed investment has been a net positive regional stability. Role of Asia Pacific as a fertile ground for technological development has been attributed to a powerful cocktail of relatively youth populations, freedom from clunky legacy systems, and a drive for financial liberalization. This region is showing proper alignment with next technological evolutions. The need for infrastructure in the Asia-Pacific region is massive, totaling, as per varieties of estimates, as much as $50 trillion by 2040. Regarding innovation, if we count the number of patents, Asia-Pacific region will outnumber any other region by a large margin. Ladies and gentlemen, present shape the future. From the present prospects of Asia-Pacific region, we can mold the bright future. Asia-Pacific has all the 7 of the world's biggest global cities like Tokyo, Jakarta, New Delhi, Manila, Seoul, Shanghai, Mumbai. Most of the major metropolis of the world are now in Asia-Pacific. The rise of interconnected Asia is no more a regional story. It is a global phenomenon. Asia is the most powerful force reshaping world order today. Combined with Asia's rapid and large-scale urbanization, large industrial service and knowledge centers are being developed, along with cross-border logistic networks. In the coming decade, these trends will heighten cross-border flows of skilled and professional labor. Public and private knowledge networks create incentives for new and more technologically advanced cross-border energy and ICT service markets and increase demand for infrastructure and, of course, investment. All these will result into additional regional health, food safety, and food security, and mitigate environmental damage of shared natural resources. When we are talking about the next decade in Asia-Pacific, I may inform you that by 2030, the region will contain 66% of the world's middle class and 59% of world's middle-class consumption. Data showed that around 780 million people from the region have moved out of extreme poverty from 2002 to 2013. Intra-regional trade is an important indicator of economic integration. Indo-Pacific region has witnessed an average 60% inter-regional merchandise trade during 2007 to 17, with 65% inter-regional trade share in 2017. Indo-Pacific region comes next to APEC in the world. In 2017, almost 65% of the region's exports have taken place within the region. Out of US $7.91 trillion global export in 2017, interregional export of Indo-Pacific region was for around $5 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, Asia Pacific is the heart of the action of multilateral trade liberalization. Therein, the Asia Pacific region has been emergence of a large number of regional arrangements. Regional or sub-regional collaboration within the South are premised on a set of core values of principles like solidarity, friendship, mutual trust, mutual respect, mutual benefit, equitable sharing of benefits, win-win outcome. Abandoned by the US, the reformed Trans-Pacific Partnership, also known as the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, is being revived under the Asian leadership. Talks are also progressing towards the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. ASEAN is one of the best examples of economic and political integration. The specific agreement on closer economic relations, economic cooperation organizations, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Indian Ocean Rim Association, Asia Cooperation and Dialogue, Gulf Cooperation Council, ASEM, SICA, ARF, all these living agreements will continue to evolve and will likely attract new members, investments, and opportunities, offering a flexible multi-track path to economic integration in Asia. Our very own SAARC, BIMSTEC, and BCIM are also proof that having regional organizations directly or indirectly helps to prosper collectively. China's BRI and the much-discussed Indo-Pacific Alliance will further strengthen the Asia-Pacific region in the coming decades, when these two mega-regional arrangements will be operational. In Bangladesh, Bangladesh always welcomes any idea of collective progress and prosperity, and want to be a party to all such arrangements, which is economic in nature and helps economic development and do not infringe upon any sovereign rights of any country. Distinguished guests, against all these rosy pictures, however, we must remember that it is the same region which also has the highest number of poor people and is divided by race, color, religion, level of development, and geography. So we need to innovatively use the current socioeconomic landscape and the resources of our region to achieve sustained economic growth and significant improvement in social conditions for bringing greater prosperity for our people. From economic and security matters to cultural and environmental concerns, the Asia-Pacific Asian century will require increased cross-border education, communication, cross-border cooperation, which can be enhanced by regional cooperation. In the coming decade, the nations of the Asia-Pacific need to develop economic development strategies to take advantage of the Asian region's new financing capabilities, aid, infrastructure, and other investment, as well as growing demand for tourism destinations and the resources of our region. Investment in infrastructure for connectivity, including air, sea, and communication links, is likely to foster regional tourism, and trade benefits that can be widely shared. In the coming decade, we also hope to see combined efforts to fight the adverse impacts of climate change and disaster management, on water governance, on fighting terrorism and piracy and cyber crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, under the visionary leadership, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh has been intensely pursuing regional integration for economic cooperation with countries in South Asia and in Southeast Asia through SAARC, BIMSTEC processes. We have signed SAFTA, SAARC Motor Vehicle Agreement, SAARC Railways Agreement, and BIMSTEC FTA to foster regional connectivity. Bangladesh is also very proactive in other regional initiatives like ASEM, SICA, ACD, and ARF. We are also maintaining close partnership with ASEAN members. We have signed MU with China's Belt and Road Initiative. We are sure that we will be effectively engaged in any future Indo-Pacific alliance if it is found to be purely economic in nature. I shall urge the FBCCI leadership to meticulously study all the opportunities for enhancing our export and network and come back to the government with concrete proposals rather than sporadically reacting after different crises. Present crisis with onion is a good example of how we can manage an emergency with regional resources and cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a major shift taking place in the world economy, and Asia Pacific is both the place and the reason. However, to gain from this development, we have to prepare ourselves with skills, quality education, infrastructure, good governance, and above all, goodwill. I hope the FBCCI will always be an important element in our quest for development vis-a-vis Asia Pacific, not only in the coming decade, but in the coming century as well. I thank you all. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.
Yes, was great. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Momen, for the informative and insightful speech you made. Dr. Abdul Momen stressed on the importance of the intra-regional trade and the capacity to still expand it, the necessity of trade liberalization, which is under threat by some protectionism policies from the forerunners of liberalization, indeed, and the values of the current trend of globalization, which is very important to keep the values and to continue the trend of globalization. I'd like to remind the audience that in case you are tweeting or you use the social media, you can use the hashtag CASI-DACA2019 to post your opinions or quotes from the distinguished speakers. So the next speaker is the founder and chairman of Summit Power International Limited, Summit Holdings Limited, and IPCO Developments Bangladesh Limited. Summit Group, head office in Singapore, is the largest infrastructure conglomerate in Bangladesh with investments in the energy sector, ports, logistics, information technology, and hospitality. Summit Power Limited, Summit Alliance Port Limited, and Khulna Power Company Limited are subsidiaries of Summit Group and are currently listed in the Dhaka and Chittagong stock exchanges with a combined market capitalization of about 100 billion takas. He has an MBA from the Institute of Business Administration, IBA University of Dhaka. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Mohammad Aziz Khan. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's amazing to be standing in front of such distinguished people from around Asia Pacific. It's amazing and very onerous, very challenging to be talking after the Honorable Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen. Sir, I will try to continue with what you have said, and please forgive me if I'm saying something wrong. It's quite overwhelming to talk about Asia Pacific after the Honorable Finance Minister. Thank you very much, Sheikh Fahim, President of the FBCCI. Congratulations to FBCCI and the Chamber of Commerce for Asia Pacific, distinguished panel, and all my friends and colleagues sitting over there. We are at an unprecedented time, at an inflection point in society and the world that was not believable only a couple of years back. The Westphalian thoughts that we were pursuing from 1945 had given the whole world so much that prosperity, freedom, hope, equality, inclusiveness, these became thoughts of our life. These liberal thoughts, this cohesiveness, this working together became the thought. Prior to 1945, we had seen colonialization, apartheid, inequality, differences between men and women. And then we saw the Second World War. In Second World War, we saw the Allies winning and creating and doing something phenomenal, something so magnanimous that history had never seen that before. That the winning team, rather than, especially the United States, rather than subjugating, rather than pillaging the economies that, or the countries that they have won, created Marshall Plan for Europe. And Germany and Italy were part of that, enabling them to grow as fast as the United States of America. They handheld Japan to create their constitution. They handheld the whole world, created organizations like the United Nations, World Trade Organization, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, NATO, CETO, CENTO, these amazing array of togetherness of the whole world, and they worked towards democracy, they worked towards freedom. These had given phenomenal expressions of joy, happiness, and the global trade moved up. Every year we are seeing an enhanced global trade. We are seeing countries coming out of poverty. Then, a couple of years back, there seemed to be misgivings in the minds of the United States about what they have created themselves. They seem to have misgivings about the World Trade Organization. They seem to have misgivings about trade practices and so on and so forth. On the other side of the world, we have grown. Asia Pacific has grown. Asia Pacific, having 4.6 billion people, is the bedrock of modern civilization. From China, with 1.4 billion people, at no time, China joined the World Trade Organization. China joined all these multilateral institutions that has been created. And these multilateral institutions, with the development of the world, also saw the Berlin Wall fall, also saw the Soviet Union allowing everybody. This also saw the colonial rule going away. Bangladesh became independent. India became independent. The whole of Africa, the whole of Asia became independent. Colonialism was removed. As I said, that rather than subjugating, the winners allowed everybody to become free. And this freedom and independence today that we have seen and the development that we are seeing is suddenly in question with trade practices that are coming up. Sanctions, tariff, nationalism, religious intolerances. All these are coming back and haunting us into a different world. In that space, Asia Pacific, in my view, must take this not as a stumbling block, but as a stepping stone. Asia Pacific need to realize that it has got, as the Honorable Foreign Minister has said, 66% of the world middle class, and the largest cities, 65% of the global growth, that I'm borrowing from your statistics. And China alone grows by $800 billion annually, which is the total GDP of Saudi Arabia. This amazing phenomenon of ours, the middle class, the digitalization that has come about, with 1.4 billion people in China, 1.2 billion people in India, if we can harness the forces that we have, we will be in the leadership. Asia Pacific will be in the leadership. We have the world's largest middle class, as the Honorable Foreign Minister has said. We have also the world's largest young people. In India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Indonesia, the young, vibrant people are learning every day. They're learning through the process of digitalization. Every year, more than 9 million people graduate in technical studies, physics, mathematics, information technology. This is going to be the hub of innovation as well. And for that, all that it matters, bullet trains came to Japan 50 years ahead of Europe. Today, the largest e-commerce platforms are in China, not in the United States. We have amazing opportunity that we can harness together. What we need to do is remove the bickerings that we have between ourselves. We need to resolve South China Sea. We need to see Hong Kong becoming closer together. We need to see Rohingya crisis between ourselves to be removed. Pakistan and India must not fight over small things. These small bickerings that we have, South Korea and Japan is also having some problems themselves. These bickerings that we have, if we can overcome them, statesmen like Honorable Sheikh Hasina, like our Foreign Minister, if they can come up and remove these small bickerings between themselves, this would be the largest block of wealth, largest block of growth, the largest block of young people, the largest block of digitalization. And we would be leading the world back to integration, back to inclusiveness, back to harmony, back to love, back to be together, working together for a unified world, working towards prosperity of the world, working towards freedom, democracy, rule of law. We need to gather together. And I'm very pleased today that the FBCCI has taken up this amazing opportunity of bringing all the people from Asia Pacific region to sit over here. I personally believe that given the potential of Asia Pacific, given that it has 4.6 billion people, given the new world order that is coming through digitalization and internet, where everybody is equal, if our statesmen work together, we will be the future. We are the ones who are going to continue with integration, inclusiveness. We are the ones who will get to Shangri-La, to the nirvana that we all deserve. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Aziz Khan, for your remarks. Comprehensive look toward the challenges and the opportunities of the globalization, mentioning the first wave of globalization, namely the organization of the Bretton Woods organizations, and then the threats of the globalization like sanctions, which is very crucial at the moment, escalation of tariffs, the nationalism sentiments in several countries, and so on. Mr. Aziz Khan, believes that the Asia-Pacific countries should be the advocates of improving and bringing the globalization still forward. And so the importance of this conference here is, of course, in line with the intra-Asia cooperation. Before going to the next speaker, I would like to ask the audience at the back of the room to just please be silent while the speakers deliver their speeches as a sign of respect, and I thank you for that. The next speaker is currently Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He has till recently served as Managing Director and the CEO of the National Skill Development Corporation, a public-private partnership whose objective is to foster private sector investment and initiatives in training and skill development. He was awarded the Indian Achievers Award in 2018, the Game Changer Award in 2015, and the Rashtriya Media Ratan Award in 2013. He was Deputy Director General of the Confederation of Indian Industry and a member of the CII Harvard Business School project that worked on the competitiveness of Indian industry with Professor Michael Porter. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Dilip Chenoy. Mr. Chenoy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Sultani, Dr. Momin, Dr. Mohammad Aziz Khan, Max, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to begin by thanking the FPCCI and Sheikh Fahim and the colleagues for inviting us here and for the great organization of this 33rd CASI conference. Also, thanks to Mr. Samir Modi, the current president of CASI. What I'm going to actually do here is just make a short presentation on Asia Pacific in a changing global order and the next decade. Actually, when you look at the next decade, you think it's many, many days away. It's actually only 35 days away and 826 hours away. We're going to the next decade in that short a time. And what I thought I will do is, I've got I'm going to just talk about 6 things here. Events of 2016 and beyond. How is the world reacting to this? What is the impact on Asian economies? What are some of the key future trends and some suggestions from a business perspective in cooperation in this region? So, interestingly, all the 3 speakers prior to me talked about the similar events. We didn't talk about Brexit, but that's... Yeah. Okay. But Brexit, how will it impact the next decade? We don't know. There's a joke going on in WhatsApp that the year is 2036 and the Prime Minister of Britain is asking for a further extension from the European Union to leave. So, we don't know what's going to happen there. Of course, the elections in the US, and everybody has talked about the anti-globalization and the US-China trade war. All 3 speakers have referred to it. And of course, the geopolitical tensions in different countries is also impacting what the world would look like in 2020, and also political instability in parts of Latin America and Africa. So if you look at how the globe has been reacting to these changes, and this is from the IMF World Economic Outlook, GDP growth has been actually declining. World trade as a percentage of GDP has been declining. Industrial production has been declining, and the Purchase Managers Index for both services and manufacturing has been declining. If you look at other aspects, and you look at the advanced economies, or you look at what is happening in the developing economies except China, the trends, all the lines are actually down. And what is challenging is the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. A lot of developing countries are dependent on foreign direct investment for their future growth. But foreign direct investment as a share of GDP has been in the decline since 2015. So what does that mean for the economy as we go forward? So the Asian economies are facing with shrinking exports collectively. Global supply chains are radically undergoing transformation. The US-China trade war has seen a lot of manufacturing move other than Bangladesh to Cambodia, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Some direct, some covert because of the export destination of the final products. And there is a decline in private sector investment in most economies of the world. It is showing a downward trend, and capital expenditure in Asia Pacific is also declining. Now, what do we expect in the next 2 or 3 years? We don't expect a dramatic change in the anti-globalization sentiment. There would be a short-term continued unrest in the geopolitical situation. We need statesmen and leaders of the stature, as was mentioned by Mr. Mohammad Aziz Khan. We also look at a very interesting development that technology is leading regulation. So a lot of new industries and new ways of doing business that cannot be regulated by the old ways of actually regulation. And in fact, many substitutes for existing products are being banned or being restricted because of old notions and old ideas. But as the world goes digital, cyber security and data breaches and fake news and using the digital media to influence thought, including elections in different countries, and I'm not here only talking of the US elections, there's a very famous case of India elections as well, is a challenge that we need to actually see going forward. And finally, of course, the Honorable Minister also talked of climate change. So what would happen here? The anti-globalization thing is when the ASEAN economies grew, they grew on the backbone of exports. You know, the president of CASI actually showed the roaring tiger in his thing. And if you look at the growth rates, which are actually going to come down, the different rates are showing a steady decline from projections that were made last year. And trade is expected to remain subdued and exports to shrink further. As countries become more protective, there's going to be an escalation in trade costs because of higher tariffs, and the negative business sentiment which is being created by all of this is going to keep investment spending down. However, digitization has gained traction and revolutionizing business models. The whole Industry 4.0 revolution that we talk about is impacting current jobs, is impacting jobs of the future. You will have to actually look at a new method of skilling and a new method of education to address the challenge of the future. Typically, the way the education system responds to change in curriculum is 3 to 4 years. You have to do that in 3 to 4 months. The whole system has to change. And then the size of the economy that's going to be accounted by deep learning could be 3.5 trillion to US 5.8 trillion on an annual basis. And this is really an estimate by McKinsey Global Institute. And of course, AI adoption can actually raise global GDP by about 13 trillion or about 1.2% additional GDP per growth per year. So the notion that Industry 4.0 and AI is going to take away jobs, is going to address that, is being challenged by many institutions around the world. So this is the same thing in a different kind, in a different, in a graphical structure. So you will see that the profit margins, it can help improve profit margin, improve productivity, and also result in cost reduction, and therefore add a particular amount of GDP to economies. And China, Japan, India could be the biggest contributors of the potential gain, followed by South Korea, Australia, and Indonesia. Again, you're seeing a lot of Asian leaders in the digital space. You did talk about the companies from China leading, being larger than the US companies. But again, this is from the Forbes list here. If you look at cyber threat, this is a very key thing which can derail all of economic development and cooperation. It's estimated that cyber crime is about 1 trillion. It is the 6th most global risk identified by CEOs, and it is the 5th most in the Asian top risks. So Asia seems to be more at risk than the rest of the world. And if you look at 81 billion lost in value and revenue due to cyber attacks in 2016. As we digitize, as we become more interconnected, this is an area that is of concern. Data breaches is also interesting. There's been a 424% increase in the number of data breaches in 18 over 17. It'll be a similar number in 19 over 18. And there's a lot of underground activity in the dark internet when we go forward. Fake news, in these days where it's a challenge, and it is interesting, there is impact on companies. Infibeam Avenues, India's e-commerce firm, lost 71% of its market value in a day because of spurious reports that were circulated. So it's not necessarily isolating individual businesses. 39% of businesses surveyed reported leaks of internal information, and while we strengthen the outside IPR regime, this digital thing is going to create a new necessity for regulation of digital content. Taxation is a big issue. As products and services are delivered remotely, the national income tax regimes are not in consonance with changing technologies and business models. How will they impact different countries? There is domestic tax-based erosion and profit sharing due to people gaming the system. And since developing countries rely a lot on income tax, it's a challenge for the financial ministries in developing countries. So some estimates 100 to 240 billion is lost in revenue, equivalent to 4 to 10% of global corporate income tax. Again, climate change mentioned, which is the next impact there. And this is a huge challenge going forward. But what is important is that the SDGs cannot be met. So, you had the Millennium Development Goals for year 2000. They were not met because of revenue considerations and finance considerations. The SDG will not be maybe met because of climate change, and this is a challenge that we need to collectively address. Interestingly, what is going to happen here is that the natural disasters will cost the Asia Pacific region close to $675 billion every year. And with the increase in temperature and the rise in the sea level, there's an existential threat to many countries in the region due to the rise in sea level, and including many of the coastal cities in India and many other parts of the world. So this is going to impact, and most of our densely populated things are coastal because of the ancient tradition. So there's a good news, okay, and there's also bad news for us. If you look at this region is going to have a huge increase in income and consumer spending. So if you look at the facts and figures presented by the minister and Dr. Aziz Khan, they actually talk of how this region is going to grow. If this region is going to grow, then everybody's else attention is going to be focused in this region to create a market. And that's the big area that we actually have to look at. And it's going to grow in the next decade from 1.5 trillion today to about 6 trillion by 2030. So it's a huge increase in this area, and that's the positive news, and Asia could drive 50% of global consumption growth in the decade ahead. Now, what do we do? That's the challenges, and you'd asked me for a few suggestions, so I have 6 suggestions. I think everybody mentioned the need for concerted action to address challenges and take care of the opportunity through consultation, coordination, and pursue a common development goal of the region. We need small things first. So if you look at non-tariff barriers, regulatory and procedural burdens, and the high transportation costs associated with intra-regional trade in this area, we could actually enhance intra-regional trade going forward. Very, very simple things. The second, everybody has given up on WTO, right? And we are pursuing a spaghetti bowl of relationships in the region and across the region. Is it time to really get back and get everybody onto the table and really make it a multilateral trading system and create a universal, rule-based, open, non-discriminatory multilateral trading system? Tougher, easier said than done, but I think this may be a way of the future. We also need to jointly promote innovation-driven development in the digital infrastructure and digital economy. Because it is the world of startups, it is the world of unicorns, we need to be able to leverage them across the region. They can actually, the younger generation can find solutions to problems that exist that we who actually created them didn't even dream to solve. I think we need to work in a harmonized digital regulatory framework. We have to take collective action in this to ensure that the regulations followed in terms of data privacy, data localization, taxation, etc., are harmonized in the region, and we need to deepen coordination to prevent cross-border cyber attacks. I think climate change is a big thing. As chambers, as members of business and industry, we need to increase awareness of this and really pursue a low carbon growth center. The International Solar Alliance, which was started by India, is a way to shift into renewable energy. Hydropower, wind is to look at that. But really we need a low carbon national development program and future investments to follow this path. I think businesses must plan to tap a large consumer base of the region, investment opportunities going forward. So that's all that I had to say, and if we actually can do this, then Asia can be at the center of a new world order in the decade ahead. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chenoy. Mr. Chenoy referred to almost several challenges in different aspects, political, economic, societal, technological, and environmental. Very comprehensive look toward the challenges of the global order, and also an emphasis on the collective the necessity of collective measures and actions to be taken in order to bring the trends, the threatening trends down, and also to boost the positive or encouraging trends. Last but not least, The last speaker is currently working as Managing Director of United Dhaka Tobacco Company Limited, a member of Japan Tobacco Group in Bangladesh. Japan Tobacco was making headlines for bringing in the single largest FDI in the history of Bangladesh previously. He successfully served in JTI as the head of marketing and sales in Russia, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine. His expertise in achieving goals in different and changing business environments and support towards sustainable growth has driven his career throughout the various roles he was assigned. Having initially engineering background, later he did his MBA from California State University, East Bay. In his personal life, he's married with 2 kids. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Max Lubachev.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Foreign Minister, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Well, yeah, coming the last is not easy. I think it's all been said. And you might wonder, one managing director of a tobacco company is in this panel. So I actually decided to change a little bit my speech. Fortunately, I don't have any slides, so I can iterate easily. Yeah, we have invested almost $1.5 billion last year in a local company and acquired the cigarette business here. So I think it would be worth sharing a little bit of that experience because I think the global trends has been covered very nicely. And why Bangladesh? What is Bangladesh? And what was our experience here so far? So having so many businessmen and heads of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I think it would be interesting for you to leave Dhaka and to bring the impression that, I mean, in my view, it's time to invest in Bangladesh. We are a global tobacco company. We are number 3 globally. And of course, we look at the diversification. And as has been rightly said before here, Asia is roaring. That's for sure. What we can say, yeah, it's 66% of global population. Well, for tobacco, the couple of big markets here are closed. But even without that, it's a huge territory and big business opportunity. I can tell you that out of the 4 acquisitions which our company did over the last 3 years, 3 were in Asia, and one of them being Bangladesh. Of course, when we were making the decision, the diversification and growing the business, we were looking at what we can invest. And believe me, $1.5 billion is a chunk of money which really shows a good signal that Bangladesh is the place to invest. So why we came to that conclusion? So why we've done it? Well, of course, country has a lot of tradition in tobacco growing. It's been growing tobacco for 300 years. There was a good, strong, well-established, reputable company, Akish Group, which was our partner from whom we bought this business. And of course, it's 8th biggest cigarette market in the world. All this, yes, we took into consideration. But what I think would be important for you to understand is this country is, well, it's been said already many times, has a phenomenal growth and has phenomenal potential. Also, there is a target and there is a strong intention of this growth to be continued from the government. You heard today, Honorable First Advisor to the Prime Minister, Mr. Salman Rahman, what he said, what he thought as a target. So this growth will continue. So the government here is pro-business. The authorities here is pro-business. So that was important for us when we were making the decision. You might say, so what is that? So when there are laws, so, I mean, you can come and you just play by the rule. Well, you need to have support. As a new enterprise, particularly a big company, you need support. You don't know things. you have a bidder and body which supports the foreign investments. You have bank which supports you. You have authorities and they are who supports you, who guide you through the process. And it's very, very important that, you understand that, yes, the country is developing. Can it be better? And again, you heard today from Honorable First Advisor, Salman Rahman, that ease of doing business index is not very high, but it's growing. And it is a priority for the country. Infrastructure could be better. And the government understands that and they attracts investments and to make the improvements into infrastructure. Is everything is perfect? No. Is there business opportunity? Yes. Would it be easy to operate in this country? Well, Mr. Aziz Khan can tell me there are very strong local companies in most of the businesses. So when you're coming to Bangladesh, you need to make sure that you're bringing value. You need to make sure that you're bringing technology. We believe that what we've done is a signal to not only to Japanese companies, and I can say that within JETRO there are more than 300 Japanese companies already registered, and some of them operating already, some of them looking at entering the Bangladesh. Japan has been always a friend to Bangladesh, Bandhu, since the independence. It's been supporting Bangladesh, and there was very close cooperation. And we know that several times there were very high-level visits, and latest visit from foreign minister, and we're having discussions on the cooperation between the countries. But any others, Australians, anybody are welcome, and you can expect that it will not be very easy, but there's a big business opportunity. You will have a support from the authorities, but you need to compete and you need to bring value. To give you an example of what we are bringing as a value to Bangladesh. Well, in Japan Tobacco Group, we have 4S model. Whatever we do, we think about 4S. 4S meaning stakeholders, our consumers, our employees, and the wider society. So of course, stakeholders, we need to get the profit from our operations, that's for sure. What we are bringing here is a chunk of money which will be converted into investment. How we will be using it? Well, first of all, it's about quality for the consumers. It's about technology. So consumers who are already there, and as I said, it's the 8th biggest market in the world, will benefit from the better quality. When it comes to employees, and that's important, and I really want to share this experience, then when it comes to people here, you will find, it's a big workforce, and probably one of the biggest assets of the country, the people. Many of them are very educated. Many of them studied abroad. Many of them have experience in international business already because there are international companies there. All of them are hardworking. And we all are ready to learn and eager to develop. Let's just give you a feeling that we having directly, indirectly, more than 14,000 employees. We have invested more than 150,000 training hours over the last year since we took control of the business. This is the knowledge which we think we bring, the value which we are bringing, and those people will go to other businesses, will go abroad, and we will also improve the image of Bangladesh, making it not only a source of garments. There's a huge, huge potential, and people, as I said, probably is the biggest asset of this country. When we're talking about society, well, SDG, well, of course, we have also adopted SDG. We have our own targets, and we are building on that. And there are a lot of challenges, and you showed it very nicely and fully. And also we are giving back. We are doing our SCI projects here. So we might expect this country to be even more better for the investors. It's just important not to lose the time. And as a comment to the authorities probably, yes, infrastructure is being addressed. Ease of doing business is definitely in focus. I'm sure you will reach above 100 very soon. But also the predictability of the policies is important. Like for any investor, particularly when such a big investor as us, you can imagine that we have done a 20-year business plan. And we expect the policies will be transparent and stable and predictable, or maybe at least for 5 years. So I think this is the area where Bangladesh can improve a little bit in terms of predictability of the regulation overall. So just want to conclude that Asia is roaring. Bangladesh is probably roaring, one of the strongest. So it's probably the time to seriously consider investing in that. There are positive examples like us. I mean, if you want to talk afterwards, please. Definitely, government is very keen to make the business environment better and is very pro-business. In terms of infrastructure, they're taking efforts. They're taking efforts in terms of ease of doing business. I hope also predictability of the policy will become one of it. And it's time to invest. I mean, it's agriculture, it's IT, it's many other sectors which can really, we are looking for investments in the future. Don't come to tobacco, it's already taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maxim. Maxim shared his and his company's experience as one of the major investors, foreign investors in Bangladesh. So in general, a very positive sentiment about doing investment in Bangladesh, although there are still ways to improve the infrastructure and the business environment, but in general, it seems that it's going to be a successful investment, and so this is a good message for those who are coming from other countries to consider Bangladesh as one of their future investment destinations. So by this we come to the Q&A part of the panel. Before I open the panel to maybe one or two questions from the audience, if there is any, I would like to ask just some short questions from the distinguished panelists. The first question is from Dr. Abdul Momen. Dr. Abdul Momen, you named the multilateral organizations of Asia as one asset and as platforms for economic collaboration between the Asian countries. But when we compare Asia with other continents like Europe, America, or even Africa, we don't still have a comprehensive multilateral organization for the whole country. Do you think that such an ambition could be realized in future?
If you look at, let's take the North America. They have a organization which is FTA, Free Trade Agreement, with Canada, USA, and Mexico. And that really helped grow all the three countries. If you look at Europe, they have the EU. And the EU, you see, really increased its trade volume, its service across entered these 28 countries because of the European Union. Even if we look at the, other countries, where there is a multilateral organization that help facilitate their trade and investment. So Bangladesh gives a lot of emphasis on these sort of forums. These forums basically an umbrella organization to facilitate trade and investment. So Bangladesh is very much in it. We have organized a number of forums. Some are working better. Look at ASEAN. because of this 10-member ASEAN forum, it worked out pretty well for all the 10-member countries, both economically as well as I should say politically. But we are, in Bangladesh, we are more interested in economic development. And therefore we are focusing on many of the multilateral forum just as a facilitator. But the issue that you raise, we have to do our homework. And we are very much committed to do it. We know that for our better investment and growth, we need to improve our infrastructure, both tangible and intangible. I mean, tangible is roads, highways, railways, port, shipping and all those. We're doing it. And this area where you can have credit from others, provided the government is committed, provided the government is stable, and we do have those. The intangible infrastructure, these are rules, regulations, process, procedure. These are more difficult. If you have money, you cannot achieve them overnight. Those will take a longer period of time. The government is committed, and those has to be developed in-house. So this is a big area for us. We are trying to do ease of business, for example. And since there is a lot of focus on it, my reading is we might be able to achieve much progress within the next 3-4 years, because there is political commitment. The other drawback we have, we need to have a very good skilled, well-trained, the manpower. We have a large manpower, but we need to have better quality. And good news is, in the IT sector, we have almost 600,000 freelancer IT experts, and the whole world is open to them for their own business. So we are doing, and the government has put a lot of focus on skills and skill training and better education. Particularly, the government has been providing all the inputs like books, scholarships, all those to the kids. In addition, all the digitization, the new technology, so that they can cope up with it. So we are working on it. And of course we have, these are major impediments, but government is working very fast and also improving the rule of law and good governance. No wonder over the last 10 years, Bangladesh's achievement has been pretty significant. It's not only in terms of GDP, again, as per Asian Development Bank, among the 45 Asia-specific countries, in terms of GDP, Bangladesh topped the list last year with 8.13% GDP growth rate. But it's over last 10 years, it has been significant. It's not only GDP increase, it's also, we also did an excellent job, and that is poverty. We have reduced poverty more than half, around 42% to around 21.3%, and the extreme poverty from 24 to around 11%. And the current government of Sheikh Hasina proposes to reduce the poverty by another 5% within the next 3 years. It's not easy, but there is political commitment. So what I'm saying, as a result, we are getting a good market, and therefore there is effective demand. The good market, because around 30 to 40 million people of Bangladesh, out of 65 million, they are middle and affluent class. So there is an effective demand. And that will push business sector. Look at our return on investment, as I understand from a variety of estimates, is still today higher relative to our neighbors, our return on investment. And business people will look toward to that. They always look forward, I understand, to ROI, and we are doing pretty well in that. So my expectation is the there would be more interest to invest in Bangladesh, and hopefully we will do much better. And because we are creating the atmosphere, the environment, and also trying to facilitate investment by joining many of the multilateral organizations. While there has been protectionism, but in our part of the world, by and large, we are encouraging it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Momen. So the next question is for you, Mr. Aziz Khan. You mentioned the anti-globalization forces and feeling the rise of those sentiments within the past a few years, and named them as a threat to the globalization. As a businessman and as chairman of a big conglomerate in Bangladesh, I would like to know about your view about what the business society of Bangladesh, in collaboration with the other Asian countries, can do in order to advocate bringing forward the globalization and to benefit from the second wave of globalization.
Thank you very much. It's an excellent question. It's a very broad and very intriguing question, as well as a very diplomatic question to answer. I'm not the best of the diplomats to be able to answer, so my answer will be quite frank. The concerns that we are seeing today with the trade war, so-called trade war, and sanctions that might be coming, that has come up into various countries, including in Iran, on Iran rather, and the sanctions that might come to China, some of which has come in terms of tariff. So these would have cascading effects. With the spoke about Brexit. How the Brexit will fan out is not also known to us. So countries like Bangladesh and countries in the Asia Pacific region are all growing. They're all growing at 5.5%. This growth must be sustained. We have 4.6 billion people. And out of these 4.6 billion people are wanting to grow and become what the wealthy nations have. So this cascading effect of this closeness of borders, tariffs, are not good. We haven't succeeded in that. Those were the situations, as I mentioned, prior to 1945, when countries were colonizing other countries. Countries were trying to take their economic desires to rip it off from another country. Since then, we have been cooperating with each other, and in fact, we have seen that in the last 73 years, the world has had phenomenal increase. China has eradicated poverty from 1.4 billion people. The way Bangladesh, under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina and the foreign minister over here and the government of Bangladesh, it is unprecedented what we have achieved, beyond expectation. The social infrastructure, the way it has moved about, the equality between men and women, the workforce that we have expanded, the exports that we are being able to do. These are concerns that these growth will not continue in the same manner if we see larger economies, very powerful countries are not supporting this. And that's why my submission is that Asia Pacific should come together. And in that Asia Pacific, the challenges that we have, so, as I mentioned, Hong Kong or South Asia, the seas, North China Seas, Korea, Japan, India, Pakistan, India, China, these are trust deficits. These are not phenomenally philosophical or that cannot be overcome. These are small aspects in terms of the larger growth that is possible in this region. So that's why I personally feel that this, your Chamber of Commerce as well as FBCCI, that FBCCI has taken this initiative is amazing. And I hope our Prime Minister, Honorable Sheikh Hasina, who is one of the distinguished leaders today in the world, would take initiatives to bring about Asia Pacific together. Thank you.
All right, Dilip, the next question is for you. As a chamber leader with many years of experience in a chamber of commerce and in a federation, an apex organization, what do you think the role and the contribution of the chambers could be to safeguard the global order, to give it a boost, to protect it from the anti-globalization sentiments? Do the chambers really can play a role, or it is just we should just leave it to the governments or to the multinational companies?
Thank you, Chairman. I think in his speech, the Honorable Minister actually twice referred to that a study should be done by the Federation of Bangladesh Chambers of Commerce and Industry and advise government. So the chambers at best could actually understand the implications of anti-globalization forces and advise governments on a negotiating strategy going forward. I think the biggest challenge is within membership of chambers, because traditionally liberalization and foreign direct investment, I don't want to take you on, Max, but you said everybody is welcome in Bangladesh excepting tobacco, right? Because tobacco is already taken. So the challenge comes when chambers get their members together, right? Then how do you present a balanced view to government? Sometimes if you're presenting a balanced view to government, it's not in the interest of a certain section of members. And that is the biggest challenge for chambers to actually go through. Because in today's fast and dynamically changing world, the assumptions in which you base growth on today may not hold tomorrow. So the chambers need to get a lot of intellectual capability, either outsource it or get their members to do that, to do predictive modeling and to advise governments there. Chambers also need to advocate. You'll have to go and lobby with the countries who are preventing your own access of goods and services, or not looking at you as a favorable destination, or even intervening in the internal affairs of your country. And I think that's where members, and therefore, CASI is such a great forum where members actually get together and, you think of a bigger good than your own immediate needs. So that is the way, the three things that really chambers, develop the competence to be able to provide unbiased opinion to government, take on and address governments and other businesses that are preventing or doing something which is not promoting business. And the third is to look beyond membership and beyond immediate thing and integrate in global chamber networks.
Thank you very much. And then a question for Maxime. You are the representative of a multinational company in Bangladesh, a developing country. There has always been a paradox view toward globalization. From one side, the multinational companies and many governments in which country those MNCs are headquartered, they used to look at globalization as an opportunity for their own country and all for the MNCs. But it was a kind of fear in individuals as entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, or small and medium-sized enterprises. They perceived the wave of globalization as a threat to their own business. They had the perception that the MNCs are eating up all of the resources they are just putting pressure on the shoulder of those small and medium-sized enterprises. What do you think? Is that judgment a true one?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we are not that bad. I want to start. Well, of course, it can be conspiracy theory. At the end of the day, business naturally tries to expand, right? This is how. So, yeah, and that's why there is a regulation. We always welcome any regulation which we understand and which serves the country. And again, just to give you an idea of tobacco sector, it's very difficult to do the whole supply chain for a small entrepreneur in tobacco because there's a lot of technology. You can do basic stuff, but you cannot really, it's like pharma. You need to invest a lot in research and development. You might think strange, but it is a fact. So I think we talking about the sustainability of business and we understand the sustainability of the business. And for us, it's very important to be respected and trusted partner for the government. Because we are probably the most regulated industry in the world. Yeah? And here in Bangladesh is not an exception. This is one of the most regulated tobacco markets in the world. We are paying 81% of the retail price as taxes. So in last year, for instance, we were number one taxpayer in this country, number two taxpayer in the country, but number one was another tobacco company which is bigger than us. So I think it's about dialogue, and I'm very much in agreement that it always needs to be dialogue, unbiased and continuous. Because of course, you know, if I have an opportunity, I might want to take it, but I also understand I need to make a sustainable business. But it also kind of, if I have a dialogue with the government and it's clear what are the roles, what are the expectations, then it will be to the mutual benefit. And as I said, we believe in 4S model, which means that everybody benefit from the business. Like a simple example, like in some markets in Europe, you know that supermarkets are not allowed to work on the weekends or long hours because we want the small businesses to work. So those kind of decisions, a probably supermarket will not imply on himself. But if a supermarket is addressed, we might suggest this as a solution which make the business being sustainable and also benefit all stakeholders in the society. That's probably, if I answered your question.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm through with the questions, but we still may have time for one or two questions from the audience. If anybody has a question, can just raise up hands. Yes, one gentleman over there. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Brian Clark from the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I was wondering if Mr. Aziz Khan might just reflect a little bit on the energy and power cooperation opportunities within the region and how you might harness that in the sense of Bangladesh. But also as a supplementary to that, to the Foreign Minister, you're about to become, or you are, the Vice President or Chairman of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, and then will become the Chair. So same question, but within the region of Indian Ocean Rim. How do you see the dynamics playing out?
Sir Abdul Momen is asking for you just to repeat your question again briefly.
So to the Foreign Minister, I was just, you'll become shortly, you are the Vice Chair of the Indian Ocean Rim Association and will become the Chair, Bangladesh will become the Chair of the Indian Ocean Rim Association in 2 years' time. So that leadership opportunity for Bangladesh is a major global opportunity, and I'd just like you to reflect a little bit on how you see that power dynamic operating and how to advance the opportunities for Bangladesh. Thanks.
Somehow I have poor hearing, so I couldn't get it correctly. Sorry for my apology. Yeah, we would be, Bangladesh is always, as you know, our foreign policy is friendship to all, malice to none. And we have been encouraging multilateral cooperation. We believe that we cannot achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves, or even the SDGs, without close cooperation and partnership. So we have been looking for partnership with government to business, government to academy, government to philanthropy, everyone, all stakeholders. Now, we would be this, you said that what organization we are trying to head upcoming days. We will be chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum in the next year. We have been elected as the member of the executive committee member of UNDP, and we are also UNICEF. So in the UN organizations, we have been already a member and the chair of leadership position in many of those. But by and large, our main goal is to facilitate collaboration and cooperation and partnership. Wherever Bangladesh is we always encourage partnership. And even this, we encourage all the business organizations because they can help facilitate. One question he was asking, my friend, and he said how business organization facilitate, contributes. And I think one is great linkages. It creates so much of linkages between the companies of varieties of countries. And this is an essential. Let me share this old story with you. Many years ago, it was in the 90s, we have been trying to get some investors in our mobile cell phone business. And it was very difficult. No one was willing to come to Bangladesh because it is a least developed country. You see, least developed country, LDC. So nobody was willing to come. Eventually, one young man somehow convinced one big firm, a Scandinavian firm, that although you will not make much money, but there is a brand name organization. So at least you can attach your name with that organization, and that will help you to have goodwill. So on that context, that big company wanted to be a shareholder of that big name, goodwill, just for goodwill. But it did miracle. Once they came, invested in Bangladesh, they are getting more than $1 billion net profit each year. So these organizations, whatever it is, it disseminates facts, figures, and tells about what is happening in that country. So therefore, I find all the associations are very useful because through them we know each other. It is a platform to understand each other, understand the potentials of business, and therefore Bangladesh government encourages all these, organizations and multilateral, both multilateral organizations as well as regional associations and organizations. I'm not sure whether I answered you correctly because I didn't hear it right, but if we can talk later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the time is almost over. We have maybe just time for a single question. I prefer to receive it from a lady in order to respect ladies and also don't create a gender gap in this session. Yes, please go.
Thank you. This is Preeti Chakraborty, Director of FBCCI. I work with health sector, that is I run a medical college, hospital, and nursing college, all these things, all the wings of health sector. And our government is doing a lot for developing our health sector. The private sector is around $6 billion in Bangladesh, and $2 billion is flowing out from Bangladesh to outwards. And this is the high power delegate. My question to Mr. Dilip. So as India is attracting around $1 billion in health sector from Bangladesh only. So how we can attract FDI in healthcare sector to develop in our country? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. I think the challenges in the health sector in India are very similar to the challenges in the health sector in Bangladesh. While we get a lot of overseas, patients because the health sector has developed, I think the first thing is to create an ecosystem to deliver efficient health. Now you can choose whether you want to do it through the government system or you want to do it through the PPP system or you want to encourage private hospitals to come in or you want a combination of all three. But in developing economies, including there, the challenge is we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough specialists, and we don't have enough nursing staff. So if you look at any of the health educators, the doctor-patient ratio or population ratio or nurse population ratio or the beds population ratio are challenging. But Bangladesh started something very much ahead of India, was your version of the Swachh Bharat program, where you started in saying that prevention is better than cure. So you got to focus in prevention here, and then also at the same time create the educational infrastructure or actually even create scholarships for people from Bangladesh to go and study medicine or study nursing elsewhere and come back and serve here. When they come back, there's another challenge. Everybody will want to actually do it in an urban center. They won't want to go to the rural centers, right? And then you need to create an incentive system where you get doctors to practice for X number of years in rural areas before coming back into the urban centers. So there is no one silver bullet, right? You actually have to do multiple things there. And what we did in FICCI was very recently we did a stakeholder consultation within public health, non-governmental organizations, the hospitals, the government people, and came up for a health sector plan for the health in India for the next few years. As you know, India, the Prime Minister has launched the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is providing the largest insurance-based healthcare provision for the people here. In India, over 500 million people are covered. That's a scheme which can be replicated because then you create an ecosystem for people to invest in hospitals. And you don't need large hospitals. You need smaller 50 to 100 bed hospitals in a whole area across the country. This is a very, very short answer to a question. It can't be answered in a panel discussion, but happy to work with you to take this forward.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chenoy. And with this, we reach to the end of the session. Before finishing, I think we have some, but we are run out of time. I think there are some gifts which should be given to the panelists. Let me sincerely thank all the panelists, especially His Excellency Dr. Abdul Momen, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Government of Bangladesh, as well as all of the distinguished audience in the room for having stayed up to the end of the session with us. I hope that you could have taken good lessons and insights from the panelists' remarks with you back home so that you can accommodate them into reshaping your business and corporate strategies. So thank you very much. And once again, at the end, please give a big applause for all the panelists.
Thank you, moderator and the speakers of the panel. To show our appreciation, may we request the session chairman, Dr. Pedran Sultani, to come forward and to help us to present tokens of appreciation to our speakers. First of all, may we request our moderator to kindly present token of appreciation to the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen. May we have our next speaker, Mr. Muhammad Ajit Khan, please. Now, Mr. Dilip Chinoy, please. Next, we have our speaker, Mr. Max Lovachev, please. We would now like to call on Mr. Shujib Ranjan Das, Director of BCCI, to present a token of appreciation to the session chairman, Dr. Pedran Sultani. And Mr. Rajal Korim Resnu, Vice President of BCCI. Thank you. That ends our plenary session 1. Let us immediately move to our plenary session 2. Thank you all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This brings us to a close of the plenary session 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready for plenary session 2. Plenary session 2 is on technologies transforming economies. The technology trends for 2019 are dominated by areas such as AI, Industry 4.0, and the role of 5G, among others. This session will explore emerging technologies that could have an impact on industries in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will be chaired by Mr. Brian Clark, Director of Trade and International Affairs of Australian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Can I have Mr. Brian Clark on the stage, please? Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I request the chairman to come up on stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also very pleased to have with us Mr. Mustafa Jabbar, Honorable Minister of Post,